Hello and welcome to the next race review in the 2022 British Touring Car Championship. With me is my good friend Ben. Say hello.
Hello.
And we're going to be covering this past weekend's Thruxton meeting. Now, it's worth noting a few things. First of all, this is the first of two race meetings happening at Thruxton. Second one will be happening in late August. The next thing to mention is that we do have a playlist with all of the 2022 touring car race reviews, amongst other things such as any news that might come through, things like that. Any videos that include that sort of stuff will also be in that playlist. The link for that is in the description below. And the third thing is that despite this is to relate to the actual race weekend itself, is despite the use of the hybrid system, the racing wasn't as well. There was a lot of good racing on, but it wasn't as much as it was in the previous weekend. So if that previous race meeting, so if this race review seems a bit shorter than the last one, then you know why for that reason. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into qualifying. So qualifying saw a clean session once again, no red flags during the entire session. Josh Cook put in a great pole position time with 5 minutes left in the session to go ahead of Jake Hill and Dan Camish getting amongst the mix. Josh Cook's pole time was a 1:15.310. Jake Hill was 77 thousandths behind in second, and Camish a further 4 thousandths of a second back in third. It's also worth noting that during qualifying we saw strong performances from Jason Plato and Ash Hand. Plato qualified in 7th with Ash Hand qualifying in 11th, so great job from those two and great to see him up near the front. Moving into race 1 though, it was Josh Cook versus Jake Hill who went head to head for the start, with Josh Cook outbraking Jake Hill into the first complex to hold on to a lead that he would never relinquish. We actually saw a big incident on lap 1, or the main incident on lap 1, which involved Dan Camish and championship leader Tom Ingram as they went through Noble Corner. That put Camish into a spin and dropped him down the order. Ingram suffered 2 by going off track and picked up grass, which in turn causes intercooler to overheat and made him pit on the following lap. On lap 2 we saw Adam Morgan, Stephen Jelly, Dan Lloyd, Bobby Thompson and Rory Butcher all having a close scrap. This went on for several laps. Unfortunately on lap 4 we lost both Jade Edwards and Ollie Jackson. We do know that Jade Edwards retired due to mechanical problems. It was unknown as to why Ollie Jackson retired. I think maybe an engine problem or a hybrid system failure possibly. We had Ash Sutton and Dan Rowbottom go head to head on lap 9 for 3rd place, with the chasing pack of Turkington, Shedden and Plato right behind and looking for any opportunity to go forward. Ash Sutton kept ahead of Rowbottom and in turn allowed Turkington to get ahead into Church Corner. He left himself open for attack, and it was an interesting one to say the least. There was a nice scrap between Jason Plato and Gordon Shen during this race. The two put on a very close scrap for 6th place. Plato eventually got past Shedden and then tried his luck with Rowbottom towards the second half of the race, but he couldn't get past the Halfords Honda. Sutton had what I think he would call the defence of his life from a charging Colin Turkington for most of the race. Like, he took 3rd on the first lap and just never looked back. Up at the front though, Jake Hill was trying lap after lap to catch Josh Cook. It was very, very close, within like a couple of tenths of a second. The gap pretty close for the whole time, whole race even. But try as he might, he could not get past Josh Cook, and Cook held on to win at Thruxton for the 8th time, making him the true king of Thruxton, with Sutton holding on to 3rd to secure another podium for the Napa Racing team. And to run through your race results for race 1, so we had Josh Cook was your race winner, Jake Hill and Ash Sutton rounded out the podium in 2nd and 3rd, Colin Turkington 4th, Dan Rowbottom 5th, who also bagged past this lap, Jason Plato 6th, Adam Morgan 7th, Dan Lloyd 8th, Stephen Jelly came home in 9th, and Ash Hand got his first top 10 finish of the season in 10th place. But now it's over to race 2 with Ben.
Yeah, so for race 2, Hill gets a really good start and leads Cook, with Sutton not far behind Cook. And then not long after this really good start with them three going along together, all of a sudden Gamble spins off. But as I noticed, Moffat has some bonnet damage, so I think he possibly hit Gamble, which caused this to happen. And then just at the chicane, Cook goes straight past Hill with a really good overtake to get back into first at the end of lap 1. Sam Osborne gets a drive-through penalty on lap 4. It's not mentioned why, and at this point I'm still not sure why. And Aidan Moffat gets flagged for having his bonnet flying about, so he has to come in and get it taped down, which he does on the following lap. And then Lloyd and Plato have an amazing battle on lap 6. It carries on for a good couple of laps, with Plato getting past on lap 8 with a really nice overtake where he just goes for it and just gets cleanly past. It's really nice to see them two going at it. Ingram gets up to 12th on lap 8, bouncing the car around the track. Creasy gets up to 12 on lap 9, a great pass by Thompson. Ollie Jackson joins for system check on lap 12, so it's really nice to see everything sort of going on, and Ollie gets his car back out just to see if everything's ready for race 3. Ash Hand and Rory Butcher have a really great battle on lap 13, with Michael Crees taking advantage and then getting past to battle his teammate, but then loses the place to Butcher, so he ends up going back a place. Patterson is off the side of the track on lap 14 after pulling off on turn 1. He then restarts the car, manages to go around a bit further and stops again. And I'm presuming this is probably for some sort of hybrid issue. Then Ingram gets up to 8th with a nice overtake on the last lap. Cook wins with Hill just behind him, and that is race 2. So the results for race 2 is Cook is your winner. He also has the extra point for the fastest lap. Second is Hill, third is Sutton, fourth is Turkington, fifth is Rowbottom, sixth is Adam Morgan, seventh is Plater, eighth is Ingram, ninth is Lloyd, and 10th is Hand. Over to you for race 3, Brad.
Thanks for that one, Ben. So on race 3, we had Jason Plato, who started on pole because he finished in 7th place for race 2, and his number was the one that was pulled out of the hat, meaning he started on pole. However, Jason didn't get a great start as he dropped from pole to 5th in a matter of seconds, with both BMWs of Adam Morgan and Colin Turkington, and the quick starting Ash Sutton and Dan Rowbottom all jumping Plato right at the start. Rowbottom tried to attack Turkington, but he left himself open for attack from Ash Sutton, who did the switch back out the first complex to go around the outside and take first place. Jason also followed through, demoting Rowbottom to 5th, and this was all in the space of like the first lap or so. We had Stephen Jelly retire on lap 2, which was due to contact with Tom Chilton. They came into contact with each other at the first complex. On lap 1, everything was going a bit crazy, and Tom Chilton spun him out, I think it was, and caused Ricky Collard to go wide and dropped himself down the order as well. And Stephen Jelly pulled over to the side, and it brought out the safety car. Once everybody was back up to racing speed again, we had Sutton and Plato racing very hard against each other, and they came very close to taking each other out on lap 6 as they fought for the final place on the podium. At the end of lap 7, we saw Tom Ingram and Jake Hill collide, which caused a lot of damage to the rear of the BMW, which caused Hill to receive a black and orange flag, which for those that don't know, it's a mechanical problem and should pit immediately if possible. Basically, if you've got any sort of damage, they give you a black and orange flag. You must come in within like a lap or a couple of laps to get it sorted out. We saw Dan Camish and Aaron Taylor-Smith collide at the end of lap 10, which saw Camish spin out and he spun right down the order. Shortly following this, we had Plato going wide after taking Church Corner too fast, which is one of the fastest corners in the UK. He collected a lot of grass, and this causes intercooler to overheat as it saw Tom Ingram, same as Tom Ingram in the first race, forcing him to pit along with the falling to pieces BMW of Jake Hill. Next to Patterson's luck was even worse when his rear suspension let go on lap 12, which saw lots of smoke coming from the back axle. and that was a pretty much instant DNF for Patterson, unfortunately. We had Stephen Jelly and Ollie Jackson come to blows into the final chicane, and Jade Edwards got caught in the crossfire on lap 14, and it damaged the front right corner of her car. The damage was enough for her to retire shortly after on the start of lap 15. Unfortunately, it seemed like it was anybody that drove a Honda that day was in for a major disaster. Gordon Shedden then went out with a front right puncher with 2 laps to go. That put him out on the spot. And finally, to add spice to the fire of the race, the weather then played its part by raining on the last 2 laps. However, it did not change the result, which was that Adam Morgan who pretty much led the whole race and was defending from Colin Turkington. He won the final race of the day, with Colin Turkington, as I said, coming in second, and Sutton coming in not far behind to round out the podium, with Sutton even trying a last gasp effort to try and get around the outside of Turkington for second place into the final chicane. Your race 3 winner, though, like I said, was Adam Morgan. Turkington was in second place, with Sutton rounding out the podium. You had Dan Rowbottom in 4th, Josh Cook 5th, Tom Ingram in 6th with the fastest lap. Dan Lloyd coming home in 7th ahead of Michael Freeze and Ash Hand, so both Palmax racing cars getting into the top 10, which is great to see. And we had Rory Butcher rounding out the top 10. Now, what does that do to the driver's stand? Well, Josh Cook overtakes Ingram from Brands Hatch and extends a lead of 23 points ahead of Ash Sutton, who has moved himself up to 2nd, who in turn is only 4 points ahead of Colin Turkington. Tom Ingram has dropped to 4th with 111 points, so he's not far behind in that top 3 mix. Well, 2nd, 3rd and 4th mix. Jake Hill is only a further 8 points behind. Then we have Adam Morgan, Gordon Shedden, Dan Lloyd, Rory Butcher and Dan Rowbottom to round out the top 10. So Ben, who are your winners from this weekend?
I'd certainly say the one Honda driver who did have good luck, Josh Cook, because, you know, where he's in the standings and how well he did across all 3 races. Adam Morgan, just because of how many races he's got up to, and for winning race 3. That's awesome to do that on the same weekend. It's nice to see little things like that come together. Sutton, because he's proved he's the reigning champ and he can still do it within the previous rounds and weekends. He's had a few issues here and there, and it seemed that Camish was sort of doing really well compared to, so it's nice to have seen that he's gone and done it. It was really nice to see, like, you know, he's got back sort of to good on the standings and everything. Hill did reasonable, well to sort of battle it out with Josh Cook. Yeah, he had a couple of issues here and there, and obviously race 3 really wasn't good for him, but he's still come out of this with quite a decent amount of points in the standings. I'd say those are my main ones for me.
I think for me, it's probably not far off what you said. I think for me, again, I've got to agree, 2 wins for Josh Cook. I think that's pretty much a great weekend for him. 3 out of 3 podiums for Sutton. I don't think you can go wrong there. Definitely worth mentioning for me. I think the Power Match Racing lads did well, because we saw Ash Hand really step it up a notch. Like, granted, yeah, okay, he didn't get a podium or win a race, but to get a good chunk of points in his name, and same with Michael Crees as well. Good old Creasy, for them to get points, both cars in the points for all 3 races, really showed the pace of the Astra. We didn't think that the Astra was any good, but I think as it showed this weekend, that if you get the right driver behind the wheel, and once the drivers are adapted to the car and the circuit, and the conditions are right, then anything can happen. But yeah, I definitely think we got a fair few winners, but that's been all from us. And just to ask, what are your thoughts on this weekend's racing at Thruxton? Did you enjoy it? Did you not like it as much? Let us know in the comments. Of course, let us know who you thought were your winners from the weekend. We will be back in 2 weeks' time for the next round, which is at Alton Park, which is my local circuit. And until next time, Thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, hurrah!
Bye.